Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today we are starting a series of videos on how to turn your good site into a professional one thanks to various interactive elements and animations. If you look at the design trends for the last 5 years, you will see that the interactivity and the different micro animations are the trend that is now getting more and more popular. We will check on how to create both simple and more complex animations. In the comments section, you can also leave links of interesting websites and we'll try to make them on plugin Greenshift. So we will now start with the simplest animations. Those are appearing animations. You can find them in Advanced tab and you can choose from already set animations. We will try to choose the most popular and most professional simple animations and to delete different animations such as rotation animations because they are very often used by the users, but actually they do not look very good, so I would recommend you not to use them. It's better to use the ones that are more laconic and convey the essence of the movement. It's also important to mention, for example, animation slide. It's better to use them when a part of the image is hidden, so that you need to hide the top part. In order to do this, we need to go to the tab which is called Spacing, here, and then we turn on Hidden. So this is the animation that we get. Apart from this, we can also set custom animation type. So we choose custom here. And here you can add Y shift 30 and rotate X, for example, -60 and opacity 0. And here we get such an interesting animation. You can also change the transform origin from here. This animation type is quite simple and uses our optimized animation library. It practically doesn't have any weight, so it doesn't burden your page, and also it allows you to add a little bit of interactivity when loading your page and various elements, as you can see on this page. For more complex animations, you will need Animation Addition that you can purchase here in Additions tab. Also, as an assembly, there is a design pack and all-in-one that you can purchase on Greenshift website. After you install Animation Addition, you will get an access to much more options. So let's start checking them now. So the first option that you get is that in each Greenshift block, you can use GSAP animation library. GSAP is a special animation library where you can create any animation and interactivity. You can check yourself the website. Here you can find a great variety of interesting examples. And in addition to the options that we had previously, here we have some new ones, and one of them is called Enable Child Animations, as you can see here. So we'll enable it and let's add some animation. So as we can see, all our child elements that are in our block, they will start working one after another. Also, you can add a stagger delay of 0.5, and this is how it works. And of course, if you want, you can also enable Make Random Appearance. It is not important at all how many elements you have here, or they will start working automatically. So let's check this. We'll add several more elements, 8 in total, And as we can see, everything works very well. Additionally, you can also enable multi-text animations, which is here. So how it works? For example, we'll add a title block. Then we go to Advanced and we click on Use GSAP Animation Library. Then we'll choose Animation Preset Fade Up. And as we can see, the animation is working for the whole text block. So even if we add additional text, everything is going to work together. We can enable multi-text animations, and now, as we can see, everything is separated into different blocks. So it is automatically separated into words. You can also use a breakdown not only by words, but also by symbols. So we click on multi-text animations here. Then we choose characters for break type for text, and also we'll enable make random appearance, and we'll set here 0.1 like this. So we get such an interesting effect. The next effect that we can also create very fast and that will improve your page is the so-called breathing effect. It means that there is a simple animation set and it is kind of obsessed. To do this, we need to go to Advanced, and here there is a special tab which is called CSS Transform. And here we have several positions. Normal, this is the position that will be displayed once the page has loaded. And the other position is called Infinite. This is the position at which the animation will take place. So for example, we will leave everything by default for the normal position, while for Infinite we will set a Shift Y of 20. And also we will enable reverse mode, meaning that the animation happens with the reverse back. We can experiment a bit with different values in order to get even more interesting effect. Especially it looks very good when we have several elements like here. You can add here different values for time as well, for which this animation is happening. And if you want, you can also add a delay animation from here. But let's now move forward to more interesting and interactive animations. So here on the left side, there are several additional blocks that appear after you turn on the addition animation. And the main block here is called animation container. Usually you can add it by just moving it onto the page like this. It works as a container, meaning that you can add other blocks inside. Also, you can choose in Edit some blocks, or even you can choose several ones. Then you just need to click on Advanced Heading, change block type or style, and then you click on Transform to Animation Container. Thus, there is a kind of a wrapper of this container. We can check here that our parental element here is called Animation Container, while the child one is Advanced Heading. So let's take a look at the options themselves. Actually, the very first type is quite similar to what we have here. So the first difference is that apart from having the shift option, there is also a possibility of relative positioning, translate X, as you can see here. When we shift something by X, we have a shift by an absolute value. For example, if we add here, let's say 30, this means that it will be shifting by 30 pixels. Apart from having the possibility to turn on an appearing animation, meaning that there is an animation while enabled set direction as from, we can disable this option and the opposite will happen. Then we need the option which is called Translate X here. If we have option X, Translate X allows to move relative to some value. Let's now create an effect which is called ticker effect in order to show you why is this necessary. So we'll first select full width from here, meaning it will be stretched to full width, and then we click on Advanced from the options, and now we need to move our block a bit to the left so that it disappears completely. But first we will choose a bigger size. We will make the animation text bigger. We can do it from here. Let's say 15 or maybe 12, it will be better. Like this. Then in Advanced we'll choose Absolute Position and we will shift it, for example, like this. Now in our container, we'll set Translate X, for example, to 100. Here. And as you can see, it has fully disappeared from the screen. So let's now set a bigger value and then we will choose a linear ease type from here, like this. And this is what we get. We will also enable infinite from here, and now our animation is going to scroll indefinitely, like this. By the way, in the editor, the movement may not be very smooth because a lot of scripts connect to the editor WordPress, but this is not visible on the website itself and everything should work well. So here there is also another important thing. When you create an animation where the block is beyond the screen, you need to make it so that it doesn't stretch the width of the website itself. So for this reason, we will add a container from here. Then we set full width. And in Spacing tab, we click on Hidden, given that our block goes beyond the width of the container itself. So this way your screen is not stretching and it prevents various errors. So let's now move forward to the next effect that is called interpolation, or these are animations with scroll, or it is also often called on-scroll animation or parallax effect. This means that when you scroll down or up, an animation is happening, and most often on the screen there are several elements that are moving with different speed. So let's now start. First, we'll add a row block with one column from here, and then we'll make it on full screen, and also we'll set a full content width, like this. Then we add advanced heading, like this. And then we will click on Align Text Center from here. Here we will use Fluid Typography. And then we select Preset GOT, meaning a huge size. So why do we need to use Fluid Typography? because when your screen is getting smaller, the words are not going to go beyond the screen. For example, if we set here a big size, let's say 100, like this, I will show you now how it's going to look like. So if I go to the website, as you can see, if we start making the screen smaller, the letters are going to be too big. Of course, we can set different sizes for different screens, but I prefer using fluid typography because it is more appropriate in this case. So when we enable it, there are here already set presets that you can also change if you want. And now, when we change the size of the screen, the letters are getting smaller. For a better effect, we'll add a mask here. So let's choose this one, for example, and let's enable image mask, and let's choose contain for size. And this is what we get. The same way we'll do our container, in our case row, 100% high. So we can choose either percent or VH, and we set 100 here. So now it will take 100% of the screen, and also we'll add some padding on the top so that it will be distinguished from the top part of the screen. Now we'll transform out title to animation container from here, and let's also add some Shift Y, for example 100. Now it works like an appearing effect. And we need to do the opposite. Since 100 is too much, so let's make it 50, like this. And we'll also add scale, for example 0.9. The most important thing here is that we have here a trigger option, and by default the trigger type is scroll trigger, meaning that once your element is appearing on the page, the animation is happening. Also, here you can click on Scroll Trigger Docs and you will get to the library where you can check more detailed information regarding the values that you can set in different fields. I will repeat once again. You're going to fill these fields only if you want to get some interpolation effects for the scroll. So the first value is Trigger Start. Here you will most often use an absolute value, for example 100. This means that once the user loads your page and scrolls 100 pixels, this will be the start of your animation. Or you can use syntaxes plus equal to 100. Like this. This means that once the page is loaded and you scroll until the element itself, so once it appears on the page, after 100 pixels, the animation will happen. So once again, the difference is that if you set here 100, your page will be used. If you set plus equal to 100, this means that the start trigger will depend on the position of this element on the page. Also, there are other values here, and you can check them more carefully in the documentation. Such values you can put here. For example, if you type here top center, this means that the animation will start when the top part of our element will be in the center of our screen. So as you can see, here is in the bottom, and once it is getting to the center, the animation happens. Most often you will use here two values. So if your element is located on the top of the page, so you will set here 0. This means that the animation will start once the user starts scrolling. If the element is located on the bottom of the page, then you probably do not even need to set the trigger start. Then the animation will be used once the element appears on the page. In our case, the element is appearing on the page straight away, so that we will set for trigger start 0 because we want the animation to start once the user starts scrolling the page down. Now, regarding the trigger end, actually here the syntaxes will be working absolutely the same way, but almost in 100% of the cases you will use syntaxes plus, equal, and some value, for example, plus equal to 400. This means that the animation will end when 400 pixels scroll from the start. And here the most important is to set interpolate animation by scroll, for example a value of interpolation 1. The bigger the value is, the faster or slower will be the speed, but mostly you will set here a value of 1. And let's now check how it works. So the user is loading the page, then he starts scrolling, and once he scrolls down, the animation is happening. So once he scrolls down 400 pixels, the animation is ending, meaning that the interpolation is happening between the scroll and animation. Now let's add one more animation container and we will add an image inside. So we go to Media Library and we choose this one, for example. Now this image is too big, so let's make it smaller from here. And we now need to put the headphones in front of the letters. So to do this, we go to our container, then we go to Advanced tab, Position, and we set absolute position on the top, -100, like this. So now, how to make the absolute position to be just in the center of the screen? Since this is an absolute position, these align values here will not work because our image is now located beyond our container. So here there is such a hack. We go to Advanced and then in Position we'll set here 50% on the left, and then in CSS Transform we'll set -50, like this. And now, as you can see, we have the headphones just in the center. Now we will also add an animation to our image. So we go to our container and we add a scale of 1.2, like this. Don't forget to disable here set direction as from. Here we will set the same options as the previous time. So we put 0 here and plus equal to 500 here, like this, and we set 1 for interpolation. And this is the effect that we get. We can now increase the size of the headphones a little bit, like this, and this is what we get. If you want to add a very simple parallax effect as a general movement during the scroll, so here there is also an option which is called Enable Scroll Parallax Effect, and it allows you to get this effect much faster and easier. So if we enable it, we will get similar parameters here. This way we can combine several animations at the same time. And for example, you can set an appearing animation And here you can also just add an additional effect. So this section doesn't overwrite your main animation, it just adds an additional layer. Apart from that, you can create separate animations here. You also have an access to a section which is called multiple animation. With the help of this option, you can create multiple animations at once that are going to work in one chain and even in parallel. So, as an example, you can see how it works here. Let's check on how can we use this in our case. So we add an additional animation, and for example, let's add a scale of 2. Here, the most important thing is to understand two main options. They can work as one animation, as one line with animations, or as different ones, meaning that they can work in parallel. Here there is a link documentation, and if you open it, you can check on how to create trigger animations and how to embed animations in one line. For example, we'll copy here this value, and then we'll add it here in custom start time. This means that your current animation will start working 50% when it reaches the previous animation. So if we have here a trigger end equal plus 500 pixels, like this, then once it reaches the half of it, which is 250 pixels, additionally another animation will start working. It will not cover the other animation, it will work additionally to it. So let's now check how it works. As you can see, once it reaches the half of scroll, the second animation starts working. And it works additionally to the first one. So usually it can be used with opacity values of, let's say, 1. And this is what we get. If you enable this option, which is called Common Timeline Enable, then two animations will overlap each other. So let's disable it back. One more example of why multiple animations are used. So let's say we'll have here a simple element and it moves from left to right, like this. However, I want it to move from left to right and then to disappear at the end. So if I set an opacity of 0 here, this opacity will work from the beginning to the end. And this is not what I want. That is why here I will add a multiple animation and I will add an opacity of 0 here, like this. And I need to enable as well an option which is called Common Timeline Enable. Now, as you can see, we have two animations that work in parallel, and if I do not set here Custom Start Time, it will actually start working once the previous one has finished. One more way on how to get this value is that we'll enable Common Timeline Enable from here, and then we'll add a delay of 2, let's say. And the effect that we get is also very interesting. And even I would say that this is even smoother. So when you create an animation, it is not obligatory to make the animated object the one that is doing the trigger of this animation. So in our case, the trigger is a text and the animation is happening with completely different object. So let's check now on how to do this. So first we'll add a text here. And then we will click on Align Text Center. We will add here an animation container. And then we add an image from here. We go to Media Library and let's choose, for example, this one. We can change the width from here. And then we go to Advanced and click on Absolute Position. And we set 0 pixels on the top and 50 on the left. Then we go back to General Options to change a bit the size of the image. Now I will duplicate all the images and I will just put all the pictures on different parts of the pages. So I'm doing this as an example just to show you the logic of how it works. Now we need to add a unique class to our images. So we can do this in Advanced Options, and here in Additional CSS Class, we can add a class. Like this. Now I want to make all the images to be hidden, and I want them to appear once I hover the mouse on the link or when I click on it. So for this reason, I first need to hide the images. I can do this in background and opacity. And I will set everywhere 0 for block opacity. And now I will add the animation. So since we already have 0 opacity, this means that we need to remove this tab. Meaning that we need to make the animation not from some value, but to some value. That is why we will set here a value of 100 for opacity, and let's add some shift as well. So as we can see, now this animation has been added to our trigger, but we want to add it to another element. So here in trigger type, we choose on hover, and on object where to add the animation, we put our first image. So let's see how it works. And as you can see, everything works well. Now we want to make the same with the other images too, so we will do once again what we did previously. We will add a multiple animation and we add here absolutely the same things, opacity 100 and shift for y equal to 10. And on custom object we type .second and this is how it works. If you do not set custom start time, it will start working after the first animation has finished. But we can also overlap them to each other. If you click on documentation, you can check the available values. So here you can find many different options. But most often I use this one. It means that the animation will start from a specific time from the end of the previous animation. So if I put this value here, as we can see, our second animation starts half a second earlier. And we'll add absolutely the same for our third animation. Here I will add a smaller custom start time, let's say 0.2, and this is what we get. Instead of choosing trigger on hover, you can also choose here on click, like this. Or you can also choose trigger toggle click. This means that if you click once, then the animation is happening. If you click once again, it removes out animation back. So let's check now how it works in our website. So as we can see, the images are located not in the right places. And this is because we set an absolute position, but in editor, I will show you now, our content area is this one. So it looks good here. However, if we go to our website, as you can see, our content area is the whole website, and it is displayed a bit in a wrong way. So in order to avoid such mistakes, you just need to mark all your elements and transform them to container wrapper. Usually, if you add anything with an absolute position, please make sure that your element doesn't contain in a parallel container. It can be a container or a block row. So now we can set a full width for our container from here. And you can also use for your template a Greenshift clean canvas in order to remove all the headers and footers for your theme. Now everything on the website is displayed the same way as in editor, as you can see. Animation Edition can be used not only for animations, but for other purposes as well. So for example, I have such a panel, and I would like it to appear only when the user is scrolling the page and to disappear when he is going back to the top of the page. So let's try to do this. We click on Animation Container, we set a full width here, and then we go to Advanced, and now we will set a fixed position here. In order to make the element on full width while being fixed, we just need to add a value of 0 both for left and right sides. We will set 0 for the bottom as well. We will add a value of 99 for z-index in order for the element to overlap other elements. And now we can add our animation. So we will set 100% for translate Y. This means that the element is going to be fully hidden to the full high, and then it will appear back. In trigger options, we'll add a value of 200 pixels for trigger start. This means that once the user scrolls 200 pixels, this panel will appear on the website. Now let's check that. As we can see, everything works well. So we'll also do the speed faster. Here there is a small issue. So since our scripts that are responsible for the hitting of the block are loading, after loading of the page, a kind of flickering of our block occurs. And this is called a flash effect. So in order to avoid this, we need to animate not only translate Y, as we did before, but also the opacity. Now there is no flicker, but usually for such effects, for this kind of panels, there is a specific block which is called flip state animation. And this is it, flip state animation. It is also based on animation addition, but here the logic is different. Here you just switch two states and the plugin determines the first state on its own, and if you want to create such floating panels, it's much better to use this block flip state animation. So what we are going to do now is to take our row and move it to flip state animation. Like this. Also, we will set a full width and then we will remove this block from here. Now, as you can see, here there is also trigger option, and we will set the same way here 200 pixels for trigger start. But here in this block there are many other options as well that allow us to set loading values and animation values. So we need to change here only initial position. This one. So we set a fixed position here, and then we set 0 for the left and right. However, this time we will set a negative value for the bottom, let's say minus 200 pixels. Then we go to active position and we set here absolutely the same. Fixed position, 0 for the left and right, and 0 for the bottom part. Also, this block allows us to easily check our position during the animation and before the animation. We will also add a z-index, and now let's check how it works. So, since this block automatically determines the start position, we do not need to use here the hack with the opacity, because here everything works well and there is no such flickering effect. So for such panels, it's much better to use this flip state animation block than to use animation addition. One more application of the flip state block is the effect which is called always on screen. So let's now check how it works. For example, let's say that we have a video here, like this, and we want it to be always on the screen while we are scrolling. So we add flip state animation, and then we move the video inside, like this. And now all we need to do is to set an active position. So we go to active position, and then we will set here fixed, and then we set 0 for the left and bottom. Also, we will make our video getting smaller, so we go to active size and we will make the size bigger. And this is the effect that we get. As you can see, everything works very well. So this was the first part of our video. In our second part, we will talk more about how to create animations from curves, how to create parallax for the background, how to use Lottie animations, how to use image sequence as video, how to create interesting slides, how to create one-page websites, how to create animated shapes, how to use spin scroll animation, and see you everyone in our next video.